English Intensive Program 011 Grammar The Modals Part 3 Expressing necessity, have to and must. Listen to the following short conversations and pay attention to the modal auxiliary. You must stop completely at a stop sign. I have a test tomorrow. I have to study tonight. Expressing necessity, have to and must. Use have to and must to express necessity. Examples: I have a test tomorrow. I have to study tonight. Everyone has to pass a driving test before getting a driver's license. You must stop completely at a stop sign. All passengers must present their passports at customs upon arrival. The modal auxiliary in these examples is used to express necessity. Be careful. Must is a strong, serious word. It is used when the speaker is in a position of power. For example, Tom, you must clean in your room. This example implies that a mother is talking to her son. Expressing lack of necessity, don't have to. Expressing prohibition, must not. Listen to the following conversation and pay attention to the modal auxiliary. I don't have to attend the meeting. It has been cancelled. You mustn't drive too fast. It is dangerous. Expressing lack of necessity, don't have to. Use don't have to express the idea that something is not necessary. Examples: I don't have to stop here. This sentence implies that it's not necessary to stop here. Tomorrow is a holiday. She doesn't have to study tonight. This sentence implies that it's not necessary for her to study tonight. Expressing prohibition, must not. Use must not to express the idea that something is not allowed. Examples: you must not stop here. This sentence implies that you cannot stop here. You mustn't play with matches. This sentence implies that playing with matches is prohibited. Making logical conclusion, must. Listen to the following sentence and pay attention to the modal auxiliary. Tom is not in his room. He must be out. Making logical conclusion, must. Use must to make a logical guess. Examples: she is wearing a wedding ring. She must be married. The house is completely dark. They must not be at home. She must not feel well. She looks pale. The modal auxiliary in these examples is used to make a logical guess. In the first example, we are almost sure that she is married because she is wearing a wedding ring. Making suggestions, let's and why don't. Listen to the following short conversation and pay attention to the use of the modal auxiliary. It's very hot today. Why don't we go to the beach? Making suggestions. Let's and why don't. Use let's and why don't to make a friendly suggestion. Examples. Let's take a trip this summer. The weather is beautiful today. Let's go on a picnic. Why don't you take the train? Why don't we call him right now? Notice that the auxiliary modal in these examples is used to make a friendly suggestion. Stating preferences: prefer, would prefer, and would rather. Listen to the following short conversations and pay attention to the modal auxiliary. I prefer reading books. I'd prefer playing hockey. I'd rather play baseball. Stating preferences: prefer, would, and would rather. Use prefer, would, and would rather to talk about things that you like better than other things. Examples. We usually prefer Chinese food. I'd prefer to have Italian food tonight. She'd rather cook at home. I'd rather not go out tonight. The first example implies that we prefer Chinese food more than other kinds of food. The third example implies that she prefers to stay home and cook. She doesn't like to go out. Prefer and would prefer may be followed by a noun, a gerund, or an infinitive. A gerund is a verb plus ing. An infinitive is to plus base form. Examples. I usually prefer a cup of coffee with my breakfast. Here, the word prefer is followed by a noun. My friend prefers having some tea. In this example, the verb prefers is followed by a gerund. She'd prefer to drink some fresh juice. In this example, the word prefer is followed by an infinitive. Would rather is followed by the base form of a verb. I'd rather stay home tonight. After the verb would rather, we use a base form of the verb. In comparison, prefer and would prefer are followed by a noun plus to plus a noun. I prefer coffee to tea. Coffee is a noun and tea is a noun. In comparison, prefer and would prefer are followed by a gerund plus to plus a gerund. I prefer reading to watching TV. Reading is a gerund and watching is also a gerund. In comparison, would rather is followed by a base form plus than plus a base form. I'd rather watch football than play it.